So I feel that now with this, I have presented and brought some clarity in terms of why pursuing things the, the way it's been recently portrayed in terms of finding a purpose is probably ineffective instead of actually, I mean, and it's not that you shouldn't do that. I think the exercise of looking for, what actually gives you those things is actually very important. I think it's very an important exercise to do. So I'm not saying don't do it, but not in terms of actually how you see your life. That's one of the things you should do. Those are one of the small problems that you should solve because it brings more consciousness and awareness to it. So I'm not saying don't do it, do it, but don't think that's actually what's going to get you there. Actually, if you have, just make sure that you see the world with small problems. Because as you solve these small problems and as you live your life, you find small solutions. And those small solutions, they accumulate. So the more solutions you have to whatever problems you come across, those solutions becomes who you are. Those solutions, I mean, of course, you're also the problems you have. But what I'm trying to say is that becomes the epic self you're building. Every small problem that you solve is what you offer to the world. And at some point, that they're not big enough to really have a huge impact. It could be just someone else is having the same kind of small problem and you say, hey, why don't you just do this? And they're like, oh man, that's really smart. Like, I'll give an example. Like, one of the things that I love is this concept of don't try and remember things. Actually, just make sure that you set up the situations in such a way where you remember. And it was one of the best things I ever saw. And if, let's say, for instance, you wanted to take something, what you do is you put your key next to whatever it is that you need to take. And so let's say, for instance, you have a pie. Someone gave you a pie and it's in the fridge, and you know that you're forgetful. Then what you do is you put the key by the fridge or inside the fridge with the pie so that you'll remember it, because as you're trying to leave, you realize, oh, I don't have my keys. Where are my keys? Oh, it's in the fridge or by the fridge. Oh, the pie, right? And so once I got this concept, it's a very small solution, right? And this doesn't have a huge impact. But like one time, I had to like make sure that I don't forget to lock, and I realized that I kept forgetting, and so I tried to set up alarms and things like that. But then, like sometimes I'd get a phone call and I'd forget the alarm, and I was like thinking, and then I realized, oh, you know what? Set up the conditions, set up a container. And we call that concept container, setting things up so that it will trigger you. So I set up a container so that it will trigger your memory. And what I did is I put a shinai, which is it's a bamboo sword. I put it across the door where the deadbolt is. And so basically every time I came to a door, it's in my way. And then I put the head of the shinai or the handle of the shinai right around where the deadbolt is. And I was like, oh, that's right, the deadbolt. And then I lock it, or as I'm leaving, I'd see it, and I'd be like, as I'm leaving the door, even if I got a phone call, it's just right there, so I'd remember, so my mind is right on there, and I deadbolt. And it's a small solution. And so, like, these small solutions, so when I see someone struggling, I can just give them a tip. Makes life easier, very small. But it's really interesting. This can become a really big solution for someone who needs to take medication, who needs to stay, on target. And so all of a sudden, these small solutions, as I become better and better at it, this concept, because I get better and better at using it, now I use it with people as I consult with them. Actually, I help people set up, these containers that, that are actually more foolproof, that doesn't rely as much on willpower. As you can see, these small solutions, all of a sudden, they add up. And they add up with the rest of my experience of slow is fast, small is great, less is more, and so on and so forth. So sometimes actually produces a much bigger impact. And well, I guess right now I'm telling you, so maybe this is a much bigger impact than I even thought. But my point here is that in the very beginning, these small solutions that don't have much impact, but as they accumulate, and dust gathers into mountain, your solution bundle becomes bigger. And all of a sudden, that starts becoming really useful and starts impacting more and more people in a bigger and bigger way. And so I kind of just want to really just paint this picture so that you can see hope in the life that you want to live. Because there's nothing wrong with your ego. If your ego actually handles things really well, your sense of self, then no problem. Actually, you forget about it because everything is seamless, and that's called transcendent self, right? Because when you don't need to think about it because things are going well, then there's no sense of self. That's very easy. But if things are not going well, you're gonna keep butting up against your sense of self because your strategy is ineffective, right? And so these are, and most people don't understand this. Most people just try and beat up on themselves so that they can do things better. Like, oh, you gotta find a purpose now. You gotta really get down and try really hard and not give up this time. You gotta have grit. Secret to grit? Small problems. Just keep doing it so you don't quit. So proper view results in proper results, right? View, path, fruit. So very powerful concept. So like basically I'm just, as you can see, just showing different aspects and building on it. Actually, I'm doing the dust gather into mountain in terms of why there are only small problems. And I'm showing everything that's connected to why everything is a small problem, and seeing everything as a small problem actually solves all your problems, right?